Many people say Rare started to suck after they were acquired by Microsoft, but I have to disagree. The output hasn't been perfect, sure, but let's face it, not everything they made when they were owned by Nintendo was golden either. Donkey Kong 64 and Banjo-Tooie are a chore for me nowadays, and while Conker's Bad Fur Day has its moments, it's plagued by a whole slew of problems. The Viva Pinata games, meanwhile, are fantastic and utterly charming. They're really deserving of tons more respect. The goal of the game is to attract various creatures to your garden, and which ones show up depends on how you've designed it or what items you've placed, similar to the experience of attracting animals to your garden in real life, which I think is ingenious. I believe in some alternate dimension, these games are as popular as Pokemon in this one is. Grabbed by the Ghoulies is another one that I enjoyed a lot more than I was expecting. It's Rare's take on Luigi's Mansion series in many ways. I like the setup to its challenges, which could be surprisingly tricky but generally fair. And on the topic of Luigi's Mansion, the first game was a fun, if short, adventure with bucket loads of character and a great atmosphere with a perfect blend of comedy and spookiness. And the ghosts? Damn, even by modern standards they still look incredible. I was highly anticipating the release of the sequel, especially because I just played Paper Mario Sticker Star, and needless to say, I had to wash that disgusting taste out of my mouth of a quality game, believing Luigi's Mansion 2 would fit the bill. But sadly, I found it to be mediocre and lacking the magic I've come to expect from Nintendo. I hated how the game was set up into missions and how instead of one big mansion, it was broken up into lots of smaller ones, which made it feel too much like a game, if that makes sense. A good setup to a game is actually one of the most important aspects for me. Most of the ghosts lacked personality, and without the one-off portrait ghost to add variety, it felt like you spent 90% of the time fighting the same 4 standard ghosts. I know it's cool to crap on IGN, but I thought their 6.5 review of the game was bang on the money. Please don't kill me for saying that. Well, thankfully, Luigi's Mansion 3 was a great return to form. It did everything I wanted from a Luigi's Mansion game and is probably the best game in the series so far. But as it stands, Dark Moon is by far my least favourite game out of the 3. I liked the Wii U and I'm still sad it did so poorly sales wise. Granted, the Switch is basically a superior version of it and almost every exclusive for the Wii U has been released on it now, but all my good times with those games happened on their original home, and as such, I count them as Wii U games. I liked the World of Light from Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I know it was repetitive as hell and went on forever, but the spirits, man, the spirits! I thought they were such a clever idea. I couldn't get enough of seeing how accurate they were to their source material. Many of the ideas on display were utter genius. I couldn't wait to see what they came up with next, and that was more than enough to carry me all the way to the end. Zack and Wiki is pain incarnate in Wii disc form. To play this game until the end is a form of torture that should be outlawed everywhere. Now you're probably wondering to yourself, Zack and Wiki? What the hell is that? I never heard of it before. How is disliking it in any way an unpopular opinion? Well, I guess I better explain it. It's basically a point and click game that tries to present itself in a way that would appeal to wider audiences than the norm. A noble idea for sure, and I tried hard to love it, but the execution left me frustrated beyond words. It's loaded with cheap deaths and obtuse puzzles that I don't know how anyone is supposed to work out first time. One small mistake and you're sent all the way back to the start. Unless you buy a special item to return to the point you died, but they grow in price the more you rely on them. The ridiculous deaths are amusing at first, but after a while they begin to turn the game into a fun-free zone. The second last mission has to be one of the most annoying, tedious, unbearable levels I've ever had the misfortune to put myself through. I wanted to give up so badly, but when I'm that close to the end of a game, I don't want to drop it no matter what. It was probably the exact moment I realised that maybe motion controls weren't all that, or at least motion controls done poorly. The rhyme action game felt impossible to play, and as for the sword play, forget about it. But the reason why I consider this an unpopular opinion is because at the time of its release, the video game media really latched onto it, treating it like an underappreciated hidden gem and patting themselves on the back for playing something unusual, like a lot of people do with Okami. One magazine even said, if you don't buy this, don't complain in 10 years time when there's nothing but movie licensed games getting released. Well, I did, so I can moan about it all I like. And actually, I can think of many movie licensed games I'd much rather play than ever touch Zack and Wiki's adventure again. Now, as I'm sure you're aware, I'm not exactly afraid to share my thoughts about any game, and I could be pretty abrasive about them when my feelings are less than positive. But what you need to understand is that just because I'm harsh towards a game, it doesn't mean I'm blind to its appeal. I understand the reasons why others would love just about any popular game, and even when I don't myself. But if there's one series where the praise leaves me completely stumped, it has to be Halo. I only played the first one when it was fairly new on the original Xbox, back when everyone constantly harped on about how incredible it was. 10 out of 10, at least 95%, best game on the Xbox by far, and so on. When everyone raves about anything that much, you have to check it out for yourself at some point. And when I did, I wondered if I was playing a different game from everyone else. Nothing about the game seemed all that revolutionary to me, and compared to many other first-person shooters I've already played, I couldn't see what the fuss was about. Doom was nearly a decade old by that point, but its fast-paced action, rocking soundtrack and badass hellish atmosphere still blew it away. The weapons alone have more character than the entirety of Halo. Dare I say I would still rather play the SNES Doom than Halo? It's a stinky port, sure, but it still maintains the Doom magic somewhat. And then of course there was GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, which I think did much more to revolutionise the genre and proved FPS games didn't all have to be Doom clones as they were called back in the day. By the way, did you know GoldenEye's multiplayer was made by one person? I think it's law to bring that up now every time GoldenEye is mentioned. But Halo is stuck in this awkward middle between the two. It has none of the exciting action of Doom, but it doesn't have the intelligence of GoldenEye or Perfect Dark either. And everything about the game felt charmless and soulless. The weapons were all boring to use, I couldn't give two figs about the story, and although you could argue all FPS shooters are repetitive, this game's levels literally repeat themselves multiple times. That alone confused the hell out of me. How could such a highly regarded game resort to such lazy padding in every level if I remember correctly? It's certainly not the first game to reuse levels, but other games weren't as blatant about as this and had better reasons to do it. An argument I often hear in its favour is that the game was ahead of the curve compared to other console shooters at the time, being closer to those on PC. I don't really care about such details if the game isn't fun. And anyway, I already played Unreal Tournament on PC by this point, which was far superior to Halo in every regard. Maybe one day I'll find out what everyone else sees in this game, but for now I'm just going to continue scratching my head over it. I think it might be the main reason why I'm not all that attached to the 6th generation of consoles, and why I felt out of touch with it all when it was current. If this was supposedly one of the best games of that era, was I really missing out on anything? Have you ever played a game that technically does almost everything right, but for some reason you just don't like it as much as you think you should? Well, that's me with Generation 7 of Pokemon. I've honestly had way more enjoyment with the 8th generation of Pokemon than the 7th. Yes, I know, Sword and Shield could have and should have been way better than what they are, but there was something about Pokemon during Generation 7 that left me cold. This is going to sound crazy, but if Pokemon was a person around that time, it felt like he suddenly turned into an arrogant prick who thought he was now too cool for me, even though I'd been by his side since the start, always defending him from baseless accusations and always being there for him. It hurt that after everything I did, he started to ignore all my calls. Maybe I'm just bitter it got rid of my beloved triple battles. Maybe it's because I hated the amount of focus on the useless annoying Lily. Perhaps it's because I played the games on the original 3DS which could barely run them. It could even be because I hated the Sun and Moon anime, especially for replacing the XY anime which I was super into, and at a time in my life when I already went through enough upheaval. Sure, Generation 8 didn't bring triple battles back and there was even less excuse for that this time, but by that point I'd come to accept it better and moved on to doubles. I don't really know what to say, I've just had far more fun with Gen 8 than I ever did with 7. Am I biased because Gala is based on England? Is it because I like the Switch a lot more than the 3DS? I don't really know, and honestly I'm not going to think about it too much and just enjoy the ride.